It's about you not suffering anymore. And so then we had to figure out a way to like to get their foot in the door of this work. Something very simple that they could see results right away to keep them in the work. And one of the first things we developed was something called simple inquiry, and I'll just show it to you right now. So with simple inquiry, you're going about this is something you can do during the day. You know, you can this is some, you don't have to wait for a strong trigger. So let's say I'm standing at the supermarket line and someone cuts in front of me, and I get that feeling of being like disrespected or something. Um, so I start to feel that trigger, and I know that I'm getting agitated. The first thing to know is to stop and notice that you are agitated or upset, right? Because a lot of people they'll operate on that upset, not even really knowing fully that they're upset.
Mhm.
Because many of us live in a low level, constant state of upset and anxiety, so they don't even recognize it. So the one thing is to start recognizing when your body starts to feel tight or anxious, or your mind starts racing, or you're focused on a person or a situation in a fixated way, is stop for a moment. Take a few deep breaths and just notice that you are triggered first. And there's all kinds of breath techniques, as you know, that you can do. But at least take a few breaths just to stop and get in your body and settle into the moment for a bit. And it's not going to feel comfortable because you're slightly triggered at least. But what you can do is you can turn your awareness towards that thought that's bothering you. Just watch it very briefly, let it fall, come back down and feel that feeling, right? But here's the problem. So we started to teach people that, and they couldn't do that. And the reason they couldn't do that is because they would watch the image, but because they had no background or practice in observing a thought until it falls away completely, the thought would just stay right there, and they would just stay fixated on it. So what we did, we said, okay, so if that thought is stuck right there, take your two fingers and start tapping continuously right at the top of the bridge of your nose between your eyes. And while you're tapping, focus only on the sound and the sensation of the tapping. And so if thoughts pop up during the process, you just kind of gently, with your awareness, just notice them for a few seconds and then come back to the tapping for a longer period of time. Every time you come back to the tapping, you're getting that experience of no thought or the space between thoughts. So you keep tapping until those thoughts that were there have fallen away. And then that clears the mind so that the awareness is not focused up here so much. And then that gives space for then the awareness or the attention to come down into the body and to rest with the anxiety that's underlying that trigger. And then we have a bunch of tools, as you know, to help reduce and be with that anxiety. And so it as soon as we developed it, it just like took off because people could leave the treatment center that day. They got triggered by somebody. They stepped aside. They looked at the thoughts, the words, and the pictures that were making them upset. They witnessed them for a second. They tapped, and they came down and breathe and would breathe and feel. And maybe they'd have to do it a few more times. But then they would come back the next day and they'd be like, "Oh my God, why didn't somebody teach me this before?" It's so
It's
simple.
so powerful and so simple. Yeah.
It's so simple.
Mhm.
And it's not the answer to everything, but it's a simple way in to inquiry. You know,
Mhm.
it's not simple inquiry is not necessarily going to by itself eradicate like really extreme trauma, but it's a really good foot in the door to understand that you don't have to process your problems through thinking anymore. You can process them a different way that's actually more effective to get rid of the emotional charge that's driving your thinking.
Hello, this is Lynn Fraser with the Kiloby Center Radical Recovery Summit. We are so excited to bring you the lineup for January 10th to 19th, 2020. Go to radicalrecoverysummit.com to see the new headliners for 2020 and to sign up. You can watch free January 10th to 19th or buy an all access pass.